I poached her favorite salmon, slid lemon butter over the top until it glistened, roasted the carrots until their edges caramelized, and baked a peach tart that made the whole house smell like late July. I even dug out the old floral table linen, the one she always pretended to hate for its fraying hem but never actually replaced. It was Vera's 64th birthday, and I told myself this year might be different. Not kinder, necessarily, but quieter. 6 place settings. Vera at the head. To her right, June from Bridge. Across, cousin Lori. 2 neighbors who'd known me since braces and borrowed CDs. I poured wine and let my smile float across the table like a placeholder for tenderness. For an hour, it almost passed for love. Then Vera lifted her glass, eyes glinting. To aging without baggage, she said, swirling the wine, and to finally living free of dead weight. She tilted her chin toward me. Honestly, Marin, the best gift you could give me is to leave my life. The room froze. June's cough snagged on the linen. Lori's fork hovered. I blinked, once, twice, as if that could turn the sentence into a misfire instead of a bullet. I didn't ask her to repeat it. I didn't need it engraved a second time. I stood, said, "Excuse me," with a borrowed grin, and walked to the sink. I ran cold water over my hands until my fingers went numb. Then I took my coat from the hook and left without a word. That night, I sat at the kitchen table with my coat still on, the peach tart untouched, the glasses in the sink wearing half moons of red. The chair at the head of the table felt like an accusation in empty wood. I pictured her posture, the practiced satisfaction in her face, and wondered how long she'd been polishing that line. Maybe she hadn't. Maybe cruelty was just muscle, memory. I thought about other birthdays, paper crowns and paper chains I made as a child, the years I lined the porch with candles and pretended warmth could be summoned like a trick. Decades spent manufacturing a tenderness she never intended to return. I covered the tart and slid it into the refrigerator. The dishes watched me, but I didn't clean them. I went to bed with a mouthful of silence and the taste of shame that wasn't mine. In the morning, I opened my journal to a clean page and waited. The page waited back. I held the pen above the paper, as if I needed someone to bless the effort. Memory arrived first. I was 26 when I quit grad school because Vera slipped on ice and broke her hip. "You're all I have," she breathed into the phone, small and strategic. "Take a leave," my advisor had suggested, kind eyes lifting the weight as if it were temporary. I nodded. I never returned. I moved home that week. It was supposed to be short. Time stretched thin between errands and appointments, pharmaceuticals and phone calls. I found a job at the library because it met the demands of a life I didn't choose. I dated quietly, never long, and when anyone reached toward a future, I changed the subject until it looked like a misunderstanding. Vera asked to refresh the house. She painted over the sunny hall I loved and tiled the kitchen in a gray that made my teeth ache. "It's more modern," she said, bored with my objection before I made it. She tossed my first job chair as if she were taking out the recycling. "Tacky," she declared, and I laughed like it was a difference in taste and not a theft of place. "For years that was our choreography," she asked. I adjusted. But in the pale morning after the birthday, I saw the pattern clearly. It wasn't devotion, it was erasure, a steady unspooling until I could no longer find the thread that was me. I set the pen down and finally wrote something honest. I surrendered so much trying to make sure she didn't feel alone. I never asked if I was allowed to want more than surviving her. The words spread like ink through cloth. I tore out the page, folded it carefully, and tucked it behind the journal's back cover. Then I pulled open the file drawer. Bank statements. Insurance. The will I'd signed without reading, as if consent were a reflex. I didn't sleep that night. My mind paced while my body played dead. I watched scene after scene where I could have named the line and didn't. By dawn, I brewed tea and let it cool untouched. I opened a new journal and wrote the sentence that rattled the cage. "I have been edited out of my own life." It hit harder on the page than in my chest. I underlined it once and began. I made a list of every place Vera had access, joint accounts. The deed. The stupid notepad by the kitchen phone where my passwords sat in disguised plain sight. I circled the first cuts. I gathered what I could find: forms and statements, the legal language of a life I'd let someone else narrate. I called the bank and made an appointment to remove her name. I searched 2 towns over for a lawyer whose website looked competent and quiet. Tomas Reyes, I said aloud, liking how the consonants stood upright. I told no one, not Lori. Not the neighbors who lent ladders and gossip. Certainly not Vera. This wasn't a counterstrike. It was oxygen. The next days I moved through the hallway as if it were a map. I looked at the house not for history but for evidence. What was mine? What wasn't? What had slipped across the border without permission? The old maple desk by the window held my father's last touch. I opened the emergency envelope drawer. Empty. I didn't feel surprise. I felt confirmation. The shift at home was small at first, but she felt it. I stopped checking her calendar. I learned to love cooking. For one, the small pan, the single fork, the way onions wilted quietly without commentary. Vera hovered, her smiles noisy around the edges. "You look tired," she murmured one morning, balancing a tray with burnt toast and tea the color of iron nails. She tapped the door with her knuckles. "We haven't really talked since—" She waved toward nothing and everything. "Since your birthday?" I said. She blinked, then attempted a smile that had seen better days. "Oh, Marin, it was a joke. I was tipsy, you know how people say things." I nodded and didn't open the door. At the bank, the manager scrolled through my account with a polite expression that turned into something alert. "There are regular transfers to another checking account," she said carefully. "Small but consistent. Over 6,000 in the past year." She didn't look up as if looking at me might be an apology. I didn't ask who. I went home and found Vera folding towels with reverence, each edge aligned as if that could stand in for care. "I saw the withdrawals," I said. She bristled. "Don't be dramatic," she answered, dropping a towel into the basket. "Repairs. Prescriptions. Your car continued to function, didn't it? We've always said we're in this together." Her voice sharpened. "You are so selfish, Marin. Acting like you're owed simply for existing under this roof." I walked past her, and up the stairs. I locked my door, not because I feared she'd walk in, but because a boundary is a sentence you don't have to explain twice. The next morning, a letter sat in the mailbox with no return address. The envelope felt substantial, the pen strokes firm and slightly slanted. I recognized the handwriting before I opened it. Mrs. Darnell from 2 doors down, eyes soft behind thick lenses, a quiet wave from a porch swing. "Dear Marin," it began. "I hope a letter is all right. I've watched from my window, not to pry but to witness. I have seen how much you carry and how much you give, and how often you disappear so others feel more comfortable. You are not invisible, and you are not wrong. With respect, Elaine Darnell." I read it twice and then again for the warmth that rose in my throat. The letter didn't fix anything, but it placed a hand on the small of my back and steadied me. I tucked it into the journal, alongside the torn page. I made dinner for myself and didn't call her to the table. When the dishes dried, I found a notary near the county clerk's office. I had already scheduled time with Reyes. Signatures were next. I checked the locks before bed and set my journal on the nightstand like a lighthouse. The day I met Thomas, his office smelled faintly of cedar and the kind of order that doesn't scold. Certificates lined the walls, but I didn't read them. He shook my hand like we were forming a plan, not declaring a war. "You don't need a fight," he said, after listening longer than most people know how. "You need a boundary that holds." Paperwork bloomed across the desk. We suspended the joint accounts, updated the deed, revised a will I'd once treated like a casual agreement. My signature repeated itself until my hand ached in a useful way. When I stepped outside, the air had shifted. By the time I pulled into the driveway, a fine rain freckled the windshield. Vera looked up from her crossword when I came in. "Where have you been?" she asked, voice flat. "You're distant, secretive. I don't like it." I hung my coat and took the stairs, 2 at a time. The storm that followed didn't come from the sky. It arrived as the voice of a cousin on my voicemail. Your mom says you're freezing her out. How could you? Then a text thread of former neighbors. We're worried. Is everything all right? And finally, Lori, abandoning diplomacy. After everything she's done for you? Downstairs, the thud of cabinet doors ran like a metronome of accusation. I left my phone on the dresser, face down like a sleeping pet I wasn't ready to wake. I wrote in the journal, I am not punishing her. I am reclaiming what belongs to me. Vera pounded on my door the next morning. Enough, she snapped. You've made your point. Undo it. I opened the door a fraction. It's not a stunt, I said. There's nothing to reverse. She stared as though I'd switched languages. You'll regret this, she hissed. Maybe, I answered. But that regret will be mine. I closed the door and turned the lock. 2 days later, a courier arrived with an envelope carrying the weight of the state. Official, notarized, conclusive. By week's end, Vera was gone. I heard the hard scrape of luggage wheels at dawn, her voice sharpened to a whisper as she arranged a ride, the long idle of a car I didn't go to the window to see. The front door shut and the house exhaled. I waited an hour before I went downstairs. A few frames were missing, some drawers open like questions I no longer needed to answer. But the house remained, its beams and bones and rooms bearing my name, finally without argument. The quiet felt unfamiliar at first, the way clean sheets do, too crisp in an honest way. I began carefully. I pulled the wildflower painting I'd stored 5 years ago from the back of a closet, and hung it over the fireplace where it belonged. I swapped cold bulbs for warm ones and watched the hallway return to itself. I unfolded my grandmother's quilt and draped it over the couch, the blues and greens soft under my hand with a history that felt like kindness. I opened every window and let the air learn the rooms again, moving through them until the scent of someone else thinned into spring. In the cabinet, I found the old tin where I used to hide tea. I brewed a cup and carried it to the back steps. I tucked my legs under me and drank while the day slid toward evening. I expected tears. Instead, there was a quiet that didn't ask me to earn it. That night, I left my bedroom door open and slept like my body trusted the house. The next morning, I registered for an art class at the community center. The room smelled like pencil shavings and turpentine and low expectations in the best way. No one asked me for my last name or a summary of my mistakes. I sat near the back and opened a sketchbook. I hadn't touched since I was 22 and believed drawing was air. The instructor, Callie, wore paint on her sleeves and spoke without decoration. We're not here to be good, she said. We're here to begin. My hand was shy at first. My lines had to be coaxed, as if they'd grown suspicious of me. By the second week, something loosened. I wasn't drawing to perform. I was moving graphite across paper because it felt like breathing after forgetting how. No one knew about Vera or banks or notaries. They knew the softness of a shadow I could make with the side of my thumb, and that was enough. I came home with charcoal under my nails and a quiet that didn't need explaining. The house shifted with me. I painted the guest bath a sage that made the mirror gentle. I moved the reading lamp to the other side of the couch where the light landed kindly on a new stack of books. I filled frames with my sketches, hands holding nothing, a stand of trees, a single daisy with all its attention. One afternoon, while the onions softened in butter, I realized I was humming. The sound startled me. It wasn't for anyone. It was just mine. That night I wrote, I'm not building a new life. I'm finding the one I set down. The phone rang the next evening. Her voice had hollowed, but it was her. Marin, she said, thin as paper. It's me. I said nothing. I'm not well, she continued, performing fragility like a familiar role. The doctors found something, and I thought you should know. The silence settled between us. The kids ask about you, she added. They miss you. We all do. The we landed like a claim staked in old ground. I'm sorry, she said softer now. I said things I didn't mean. The house doesn't feel right without you. None of it does. Maybe we could talk. Maybe you could come by. I looked at the daisy sketch taped in the corner of the window. It caught the day in different ways depending on the hour, proof that light is a kind of clock. I'm glad the kids are okay, I said. I hope you're getting care. She waited, then pushed her hand against the old seam. So, can we fix this? I closed my eyes. I can't make myself small so you can feel big, I said quietly. She made a sound I couldn't place, wounded or furious or both. So that's it? She asked. That's it, I answered. The line went dead. I didn't shake or cry. I set the phone down and breathed like the room was full of air meant for me. In the morning, I took a trowel and a packet of seeds out to the yard. The soil was dry but soft, giving in a way that felt like consent. I tucked lavender along the bed and sage near the fence. I spaced them with care and pressed the earth back with my palms. I didn't hurry. Each handful of dirt felt like a promise I could keep. The sun slid low and warm across the porch, and a breeze lifted the leaves until the yard sounded like a body turning over in sleep. For the first time in years, the world arrived without having to slip through tension first. I stayed until the light turned honey. Then came the knock. 2 little girls stood on the front steps, bright with purpose. The taller one held a basket with a kitchen towel draped over it. "Hi," she said. "These are from my mom." The smaller one nudged her and added, shy and proud, "She says your garden makes her feel brave." I blinked, off balance in a good way. "That's very kind," I said, crouching. "Please tell her thank you." They ran off laughing, their braid ribbons trailing. Inside, I set the basket on the table. Warm muffins breathed cinnamon and apple into the room. I didn't eat one right away. I let the quiet widen around the gift. Later, I lit a candle in the living room and opened my journal. I thought vanishing would break me, I wrote. Maybe I was never meant to be seen by them. Maybe I was always meant to see myself. The flame threw a soft ring of light across the page. I turned to a new sheet and began to